Om Sri Mahaganadhipataye Namaha. Om Sri Saraswatye Namaha. Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat. Greetings to all of you who are here with me for this presentation today. It has been a long time since I recorded any discussion on this investigation of truth or this investigation to find the peace and joy. Primarily, it doesn't give me a lot of encouragement when I see the society at large and also the quality of seeking that I may come across even when I see some people interested in the subject. I see that the seeking is very shallow and more of a time pass than anything. Of course, this prompts me to be self-contained. I spend my time for my study, contemplation, and meditation. And the real matter is that there's not much to be taught. The teaching is very simple. The message is very simple. But to grasp the simplicity of that, perhaps it takes a very long time because we are not willing to give up our conditioning. I make these comments when I examine myself, my own past. How much of resistance we have to change, including our views and our approach to spirituality, finding the truth. We have certain notions about what reality is, what sadhana should be done, and where I stand. On all these three aspects, we have our own evaluation and conclusions. And we are not willing to examine those most often. And what is surprising is we are mostly content with what we have, even though we have some definition of a goal, and we think we know it very well. We rarely examine whether we have attained that goal or what should I be doing about that attainment. We are content with our slow attitude and we think that that slow attitude is good enough. We are so complacent to the extent that we don't even question that, our complacency. So we don't question whether I will reach my goal if I continue with the same pace. If we ever make that inquiry, then there is a possibility that we will discover some discrepancy, some uncertainty in reaching our goal, and which may prompt us to readjust our velocity, our speed, our commitment and intensity. But we never get to do that. Most of us are very happy going to the temple or doing some prayer in a wishful way that the God or the Guru will take care of it. Not with a lot of trust either, a wishful thinking. If somebody approaches God or a Guru with trust that all is well as far as I am concerned, and the Ishvara and the Guru will take care of it. As a matter of trust, which reflects in giving up conditioning. If conditioning is not given up, our opinions are not given up, our views are not given up, then it is not really a trust. Then it is not really a surrender to the higher ideal. So, we can only summarize our approach as a wishful thinking. That I will continue to do what I am doing, but Ishvara, because he has nothing else to do, he will take care of it and give me moksha sometime, or give me the ultimate joy and the fulfillment of this life on his own for nothing. So this is the attitude I find. Then the people continue to drink, smoke, and live in the same unconsciousness. That's all I mean. Live in the same unconsciousness, and hope and also even challenge others that they are on the right path. They do not make an effort to study, to inquire into what is the teaching of the scriptures or the Shastra, or even the teaching of those advanced siddhas who have gone on the path and do proclaim that they have attained the siddhi. What they have done, that we do not want to pay attention to. So this attitude is not going to be very helpful. Of course, just now, couple of days ago, another time, Guru Purnima has come and gone by. People in their fervent, temporary fervent attitude, they probably would have waved the arati or offered some flowers to either Guru or to the photos of their Gurus, and probably eaten some sweets. And the next day is as usual in the marketplace. For the people of this attitude, Gurus can do nothing. The teaching of Bhagavan Sri Krishna is there for us. The Bhashya or the commentary of Shankara on the Gita is there. And we have competent Sanskrit scholars and the Gurus who can explain to us in our native tongue the same thing. And it is not a very long text, like say for example Vasishtha Ramayana of 16,000 verses. It's not that big. It's only 700 verses. The Vasishtha Ramayana of 64,000 it is said, 32,000 it is said, but I think in reality we find less numbers. Similar to the Mahabharata, which is said to be 100,000 slokas, but if you see in reality it adds up to only about 78 or 80,000 slokas. So people add up Harivamsha and everything, and still it falls short of 100,000 slokas. So if we pay attention to the 700 slokas of the Bhagavad Gita, it covers the entire Sanatana Dharma, or the thought process that went into making up of this man-making, which is applicable to myself directly or to you directly. Anyway, even though I myself have stated these ideas several times in the past for the benefit of those who may be hearing first time, or even as a repetition for those who already listened to, and also because there is nothing else to say. So I will restate the same thing in the next few minutes. What is our predicament? What is our trouble in living here? And Upanishad says, Yacheda vedit satyamasti, nachediha vedit parami vinashti. So if you come to know Yacheda vedit satyamasti, that is all well, truth is there. Means if you accomplish it here, all well. Nachediha vedit mahati vinashti. If you do not know, there is a great loss. So this is the pronouncement of the Upanishad. Yacheda vedit satyamasti, nachediha vedit mahati vinashti. So this is an ideal. Whether we arrive at this statement on our own, which is not possible for everybody, to come to such a sharp clarity on recognizing that there is one certain thing, knowing which everything is well done. And if that one thing alone is not known and everything else is known, still there is a great loss. It is very hard to come to such determination. For people of this kind, including me and most of you, it's better to take this statement and examine it in our lives, so that we are not discovering the fundamental truth, but we are making use of it. Similar to, we are not here to discover gravity. We are here to make use of the gravity principle that has been pronounced by scientists of the past. And I don't need to really rediscover. Like we hear the word rediscovering the wheel. We are not going to rediscover the wheel, but we make the wheel in a way more suitable by using the newer materials that we discovered. But we make the same wheel which rolled on the narrow streaks of the past earth, taking people from one end to the other on the bullock carts, being the wheels of a chariot or maybe a ratha. We are not going to discover the wheel, reinvent the wheel, but we will make use of the wheel to the best we can, maybe augment it with newer materials to improve upon the speed, to improve upon the reliability, and to reduce the failure and so on. And instead we also spend time on improving the road conditions, so we can move on faster with the same wheel which was invented long ago. So here, if we examine what is it that we are interested in, we are interested in happiness, nothing more. We just want to be happy, happiness unbroken. And we do not want to experience sorrow, not even an iota of sorrow, not even a tiny bit, not even for a second or a split second of sorrow do we like. So this is the ultimate goal, not really gods, not other material properties or women or vehicles that we are primarily interested. We are interested in this unbroken happiness and termination of this pain and sorrow we experience in life. The same thing is said in the Chandogya Upanishad, where Bhagavan Yajnavalkya says to Maitreyi, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. He says a wife does not like or love a husband for the husband's sake. Oh, may the husband be well, whatever may happen to me. She doesn't say that. May the husband be well, in company of whom I will rejoice. Same thing a husband says, that may this wife live well, so in company of her I derive joy. Similarly, the Upanishad says people do not really want or like gods or even the Brahmanas or the Kshatriyas or the entire world for their own sake, but for one's own self, they seek these. Ultimately, Bhagavan Yajnavalkya concludes, for one's own happiness sake, for one's own sake, Atman means one's own self. Hindi mein we say, apne aap ke liye. We should say only that much. Don't try to make it more philosophical than that. अपने आप के लिए ये सब प्रिय होते हैं. वो चीज उन चीजों के लिए ही मेरे लिए प्रिय होते नहीं है. I love them because it satisfies me. Of course, the Upanishad uses this to prompt us to say, if it is so important that all this entire world is loving to you for your own sake, don't you think you should inquire about what is meant by I or my own self when you say these words? Don't you have to really know accurately what it means to say I, me, or myself? What does it mean? What is that entity which you are referring to when you say the entire world of objects is for my own pleasure? When you say that, what is meant by I, me, myself, oneself? What does it mean? That is what Yajnavalkya is proposing to Maitreyi and to all of us. From there, we inquire into what is this I or Atma? What is this I or Atma? So that is where the discussion leads to. So we identify ourselves as this body and this mind and this intelligence, and also along with this consciousness that I have, that is, I am conscious. The biggest confusion we have is about these two words. One is what is Atma, what is this consciousness? Instead of making any abstract guesses about this, what this Atma is, we can park that for a while. And because we are familiar with I means what? I means this body, I means this mind, I means that my intelligence, I means something which owns all of them, which I call I. And we know this I is consciousness because I know. Conscious means knowing. This knowing means this knowing entity, which I think that to be a composite of this body, mind, intellect. And apart from that, we assume there is something else, which is providing this consciousness packaged into this, what we call as a person or a personality. Person. This person is a composite of all of them. I think in the Buddha text, they also use the word Pudgala, or individual. So I as an individual, you as an individual, he, she as an individual, we are all thinking this consciousness plus this body, mind, intellect, together is one package. But we all can come to easy conclusions that body is not essentially me, because many people undergo an accident and maybe a limb is removed. But this idea of I does not go. We don't feel any pruning of this eye because a small nail is lost or a finger is lost. This eye remains as it is. And we have similar experience that this I, what I think as consider myself as to be this I, does not exist in the same way in the dream. And in the deep sleep, this entirely vanishes. Including the mind vanishes in deep sleep. So body, mind is not essentially I, too much to that extent we can say. And then we have many opinions, what we call as a buddhi, knowledge, of many things which I consider myself. Some time ago I was in elementary school, then I went to high school, college, university. All this is giving me knowledge. I am knowledgeable. Somebody else might not have gone to high school, maybe not to college. So they consider themselves to be limited to the amount of knowledge they could gather, and I am limited by the amount of knowledge I could gather, and somebody else gains more. And we consider this knowledge also part of ourselves, a composite. So the intellect, but this knowledge does not come to help in the deep sleep, or it does not even come to help in the dream, because there the world is different. There we don't know about loss of gravity the way we know here in the waking state. So the knowledge also doesn't help there. We, even to the extent that we don't even know that we exist in deep sleep when we are in deep sleep. Only after getting up we say, I was in deep sleep. Though there is a lot of confusion in using these words, we are just taking what is colloquially used right now, because our premise is that we have some consciousness, and that consciousness, we have our direct experience when it is not associated with body, mind and intellect. Then we presume that because I, in the waking state, I consciousness does not engulf your body, your mind. It only covers my body, my mind. Then we say there are different consciousnesses, plural. And then we feel that limitation. Even though we are willing to give up body, mind, intellect, we still believe that there are individual consciousnesses. This is our daily experience. This is what we know. This is where everybody in the history started their inquiry. And by looking at whatever they could examine, said these consciousnesses are always separate and they are never going to be any different from this current state. Means they are willing to give a body, mind, intellect, but have agreed or confirmed that there will always be multiple independent individual consciousnesses. But we are all experiencing different results when we are in the waking state, waking world, sukha and dukkha, happiness and sorrow. In a way to fix what is the reason or a cause behind this and who is dispensing these fruits, we postulate an Ishvara or a God. As it is said in the Upanishads, in the Samhita version, Ekam Sad Vipra Baudha Vadanti. So the reality is one, but Vipra means who knows the Veda, I should say. Bahudha Vadanti, they describe the same Sat in different ways. Of course, in the Vedic Sanatana Dharma, we have many gods. All of them are used, Indra, Varuna, etc. All of them are used only for the same primordial God, and nobody else. So we accept an individual and an Ishvara or a Lord or a God, and we say this play continues forever. Those who affirm to this forever principle are called the Dvaitins or the dualists. Here duality means multiplicity, basically. Then, to refining this, some people say that these multiple consciousnesses, though they are multiple as we experience, but by some practice or by some sadhana or some understanding, one day this individual consciousness of each will merge into the Ishvara or the God. Because this is the next possibility. What they call as a qualified non-dualism. Qualified non-dualism means these individuals will merge into the oneness. But finally, there is a thought which says that this separation of consciousnesses is simply an appearance. It's not a reality. In reality, there is only one consciousness, but from a conditioned view, from a point of view which separates itself from the reality, it will be perceived as having multiple consciousnesses. But in reality, there is only one reality, and when you come to know that, you would say, Neha nana asti kinchana, naiha nana asti kinchana. Here, there is not even an iota of duality or multiplicity, called as a monism or non-duality. And we give an example of a water, ocean and a wave for this. Even though water is water in any form, when it is a huge collection, we say ocean, and that the huge collection under the conditions of wind and pressures may form bubbles, may form ripples, may form waves of different magnitudes. They may appear with different shape and names, but in reality, they have always been water alone. They never transform from water to something else. Even while the appearance of waves is observed, it was water alone. So if one can come to understand this completely, intensely, deeply, thoroughly, and of course we use the word directly, then this particular concept of this separate individuality will be vanishing and gives scope to live here at ease, in peace and joy, with no conflict, with no idea of gain and loss. That is all. As long as one is identified with the conditioned body, mind, intellect, one will undergo suffering. And that lack of understanding of unity will give us ideas of I, mine, versus you, yours. And then there will always be a conflict. And the Upanishad says, Dvitiyadvai bhayam bhavati. As long as there is a duality, it will lead to fear, great fear. And similarly, Yajnavalkya says to Janaka, Abhayam vai praptosi Janaka. Hey Janaka, you have attained the fearlessness. Then he does not use the word you have gained Atma Jnanam, etc. Fearlessness. Living here with no fear that I may lose something, that I may not, I may have to go somewhere. That fear is not there. Because all this is one, all this is myself, where could I go? Such is the teaching of the man of great realization. And this is the only teaching of the Upanishads, nothing more. So we should focus on this teaching personally, continuously, intensely, so it becomes a reality. This teaching becomes a reality for us. So anybody who is on this path, trying to know this, of course, they are very pleasing to me, pleasing to my teachers. But we see any amount of shallowness, some trickery will not work here. So the only means here is study and contemplation. And first of all, living that teaching here with no discriminations. That is the teaching of either Bhagavan Sri Krishna or Bhagavan Buddha. We will continue again in the next segments. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.